Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are doing well. This is Nathan Crook, joined by Pauline Lancaster, and today we are going to be discussing regulatory needs in the business objects landscape. We're going to be covering HIPAA, SOX, FISMA, GDPR, and really the general idea is to understand where the gaps are with business objects today in meeting these type of compliance, and why 360. How can 360 address some of those challenges and give you the capabilities you need? So again, my name is Nathan Crook. I'm a director here with GB and Smith. I've been in the business objects world for over 11 years now. Pauline, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. If you could just start recording, Nathan. I don't have access.
I did.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Hi, this is Pauline Lancaster with GB and Smith. I'm a pre-sales solution engineer. I worked with business objects. I was an administrator for over 10 years.
Awesome. So take us in. All right. So this is a picture of the greater, the whole 360 suite. And the question is, why 360? So today we're going to go through how features and functionality within different parts of the suite can work together to create business processes to address compliance challenges. Go ahead, Pauline.
Are you ready for me to move on?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to talk about regulations today. And so just to give you an overview, these are some common regulations that cover all, so across SOX, HIPAA, GDPR, and FISMA. These are all common across those. So you need to be able to protect your data, protect users and owners. You need to be able to implement security, document security. You have to have a reliable backup and disaster recovery solution, and data integrity and data accuracy are also requirements.
Absolutely. So as we go through today, I want you to go ahead and, if you look on the right-hand side of the little control panel that you have, it may have shifted over. You can use the little orange arrow to bring it out. There's a questions pane. Please ask questions as we go along. We're going to hold answering most of them probably until the end, because we're going to be, hitting different pieces and parts as we go along. But we will get to those, and if for some reason we run out of time, we'll follow up with answers as well. So what we want to focus on is the main questions that are the challenges to answer out of business objects today. It's the who, what, when, where, why, and of course how as well. And ultimately why the 360 suite can help you figure this out. Let's move to the next. So the first area that we're going to look at is SOX compliance. And of course, SOX is in place to protect financial data and have full traceability around sensitive information within the organization. And so, as we mentioned, there's some common points as we go along here. Access control, backup and disaster recovery, data integrity, versioning, all of these are pieces and parts of answering the bell as far as SOX compliance goes. And so Pauline's going to take us in to how the 360 suite can really come through with answering these areas.
Okay, so the first thing we'll look at is versioning. So SOX, one of the regulations with SOX is to be able to version. So 360 Verse is one of the tools in the 360 suite, and it allows you to version your objects. You can lock your objects, so that's reports, Webby reports, Crystal reports, and universes. You can lock them. This will put an access level over them, so whoever the user is that locked them, no one else can make any updates until they're unlocked. You make updates to to your report, to your universe. You check them back in. You can add comments, update the version. Some additional features that you have is version comparison, so you can compare your versions over time. You can see what's changed. You can promote your versions, and you also have the ability to see the history of what's happened with objects. So you have insight into who's changed what, which is one of the requirements, one of the regulation for versioning. The next requirement is backup, so having a reliable backup system. So a lot of you are probably say, you already have backups, you're backing up your file store and backing up your repository, and you may have those backups. You do a full backup every time you need to. Maybe you do one once a week, and you may not have necessarily tested that and make sure you're getting everything backed up and you know how to restore. It's not the easiest thing to restore from that kind of backup. We have a solution with 360 Plus that allows you to back up all of your content. It's an incremental backup, so the first time it runs, it does a full backup, and then the subsequent backups are all just capture the delta. And it allows you, it's got a lot of flexibility. It allows you to restore the entire backup. So if you have a disaster recovery situation and you need to recover your entire environment, you have the ability to do that. It doesn't have any pointers to the source system, so if you have a disaster, you lose your production server, you can easily bring this back up on your on another server on your DR site. It's very simple, and you also have the ability to roll back individual objects. So if you need to roll back to a previous backup, to a previous version, or you need to restore something that's been deleted, you can do that easily with the backup solution with 360 Plus. And the last regulation is to be able to secure your BO deployment. So obviously with business objects within the CMC, you have the ability to secure your folders, your universes, and create restrictions based on who has access to what. The challenge is being able to report on that and easily identify who has access to what. So you may have been asked in the past, who has access to this folder? There's sensitive information that's being reported out of the reports in this folder. Who has access? It's not that easy to necessarily generate a list of those users because there are explicit rights, there are inherited rights. You don't see all of those just from one view within business objects. We have a matrix that gives you the full picture of who has access to what, and you can document it, which is a key feature if you have auditors that are asking for documentation on your security. 360 View gives you the ability to do that. Okay, so we're going to go into a demo and show you what our backup solution looks like, the versioning solution, as well as the security. So I will switch over to my screen here. Okay, so here I am in 360. This is the web application. Okay, whoops. Okay, so here from my schedule tab, I can go to schedule backups. You'll see we have under these 60 tasks, we have a daily task that's running. It's a daily backup, so all of our content gets backed up. If I look at this task that's been created, you can see that all the content's backed up, so we've selected all of our folders, all of our users, the connections, universes, so everything gets backed up. You can set your frequency, so we've got this running on a daily basis. It starts at 8 a.m. every day. We've specified a max number of 5 backups, and we're saving our instances. We back up personal folders, inboxes, if there are any personal categories. The webbies can be purged before they're backed up, and we can also set up notifications. So this is our full backup solution. It's very reliable. With that, once you have your full backup, you actually have the ability to restore that. So in the event you lost your business object server, your backups are stored in another location. All you need is business objects installed, and quickly install 360, which takes about 15 minutes, and you can take those backups and restore. So here I'll show you what our restore job looks like. So I can restore, so I've created a backup in my production, I've lost my production server, and I have a DR system ready to go. I can take my production backup and restore everything that's been backed up in the past year. I can restore instances as well, and then I can restore it to my, we'll say that's my training environment, so that's my DR site. It'll restore all the content. It might take a couple hours, depending on the size. It could take only an hour. It depends on the size of your environment. But once that's restored, there's nothing else that you need to do. There aren't any pointers to the source system, and it's a very reliable way to get up and running quickly.
So a general question being asked is how version management and the backup differ from the version control within business objects and backing up of, let's say, virtual machines.
Okay. So the backup, so with 360, the backup solution and the versioning are behind the scenes. The same thing is happening behind the scenes. So it's creating a buyer file. Here you see I've got 5 backups of this particular universe. I'm looking at the eyes universe. I can restore to any of these versions. I can also compare to past past backups, and then these are my versions. So was the question, how does it compare to business objects solution, or sorry?
So with regard to the backup, somebody has virtual machines that get backed up on a daily basis. So he was wondering how that would be, how this solution would be different from that sort of approach.
Yeah. So if you're backing up your virtual machine, I guess you can restore it. I mean, if you restore it, it's going to you would have to, if you, I guess you don't really, do you lose a VM? Would it have to be restored to a different VM with a different name? There are pointers within the services, within the in the database that are all pointing to the source system, to what you actually captured. So it's not that easy just to say, okay, I want to restore this to another environment. So this kind of doesn't, this eliminates the need for what the source system is. I guess for a VM, if it were, if you're restoring it back to the source system, it goes back to that point in time. With our backups, you can choose a point in time that you want to restore to. Hopefully I answered the question.
Right. And the other piece was just the difference between version management and within business objects.
Okay. Yeah, so within business objects, my understanding is when you lock a universe, you lock a report to work on it, there is nothing that prevents you from preventing another developer from making changes to that report. So it's a lock that I think it's kind of there's a symbol, but it's not actually locking the content. With 360 verse, when you're locking a universe, a report, it puts an additional access level on it, and only that user can make modifications until it's unlocked. And we have some additional features as well. So you'll see with our versioning, with our backups, you have the ability to compare. So maybe you want to roll back, you want to restore to a previous backup, to a previous version. You can actually, you have the option to compare what that looked like previously and what it looks like compared to what is in the CMS now, so that you have so here I'm looking at, these are all my classes in my universe, and the different colors indicate something's been added, something's been removed, or there's an attribute that's been changed. Here this I document is showing up in blue. That means something's been added here. If I keep filtering down, this publication type object was added to the iPublication class in my current version. So I immediately see the difference. I can export this to Excel, so you have documentation about what's changed. So if you need to see, what's been changed, how it's been changed, you have that information. In addition to the comparison feature, with versioning. Let me show you. Let's look at versioning on reports themselves. I'll select this report folder. Here we've got some additional options. This lifecycle analysis will actually give you a picture of what's happened with an object over time. So I can go back in time, maybe a year, 2 years, and I get all of the history of what's changed with this object. So a version's been created, a version's been restored, a version's been exported, imported, so exported to another environment, imported from another environment, deleted. So all of this information, I have a full picture of what's happened with an object, and a lot of times this is part of the regulations is to be able to know, what's changed, who's changed it. I've got, who's changed it. I've got comments about what's been changed, and I have that full history. So this is an additional feature that isn't available within the versioning with business objects, and this can be exported to Excel, so you can save that information. Okay, and then the last, the other feature I wanted to share with the reference to SOX is security, so being access control. So knowing who has access to what, being able to document that. We have a unique security matrix. Here I've got all my groups on the left-hand side. I can select my groups and subgroups, and on the right-hand side I've got all my folders, and I can select any of these folders that I want to see who has rights on these within those groups that I selected. So here I immediately get a matrix. It shows all the groups that I selected across the top, the folders down the left, and the intersection shows what access has been granted. So marketing has been granted view on demand access on the marketing folder. That is in blue. That's an explicit rights that has been granted. If we look at Marketing Asia, they have inherited view on demand from that's in gray, indicating it is an inherited right. If I see that Marketing Asia has full control, I don't think that that's probably correct, so I want to remove that. It's as easy as I just go in there and make the change. And I see that's been removed. You can see what your changes have, what effect they have on inherited rights and on the explicit rights that have been granted. This can be documented. You can export all of the granular level rights as well. Those can be exported to Excel, so you can document them. So if you are asked by auditors for information about who has access to what, you can get, so all of this can be exported to Excel, so you can get that information out of the system. Okay, so I'm going to switch back here. We'll head on to the next regulation.
Perfect. So GDPR. So this is an interesting one because, of course, as U.S. companies, what they're doing over in Europe, regulation-wise, generally speaking, doesn't really affect us that much, except for a lot of the companies here do business in Europe, and so being able to understand how we need to be dealing as U.S. companies, dealing with information that we gather from European citizens is very important. So to this end, there again, access control, backup, and disaster recovery are all parts of this, as well as the transparency and data integrity, which we'll get into a little bit later. But what we want to focus on for this particular one is the right of erasure and being able to flag e-resident content. So where you report on information in your organization, it is very important that you know where that information resides, who has access to that information, and you have the ability to erase them if that person asks you to erase their information out of your records. So, Pauline, let's understand why 360 might be able to help us here.
Okay, so we have a new tool called 360 Univ that will allow you to see flag objects, and then also with eyes you can audit that and see where those objects are, where those reports are. So this 360 Univ actually is a client tool that allows you to export the content of your universes to Excel. So it exports a spreadsheet of all your classes, all your objects, all the information from your universe, and you can bulk update it. So with GDPR example, you can actually flag any object that contains EU resident data. So the addresses, their names, the information. So any of that can be flagged. When I say flag, I just mean in the description field of the object itself. At the end, you can put a pound GDPR. To flag the object. Then with 360 Eyes, you can actually locate where those objects are. You can identify which reports contain those objects, and you can do some impact analysis and see who's running those reports. So this allows you to get greater insight into that information. And so this is just a screenshot, an example of what the export looks like from the 360 Univ tool. And so column G in the spreadsheet that the screenshot is, that's the description of the object. So that's what we've done. I'm going to show you an example of where we flagged pound GDPR, and this could be with anything. So you have sensitive information, something that's PI, you have social security numbers. You could flag any of that with any flag that you determine, and that would help you identify so that you can then filter on that. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So okay, so here I am. So I'm going to log into the Launchpad. That's where my 360 Eyes reports are. 360 Eyes scans your CMS, your auditor, your file store, and populates a database with that information and gives you snapshots of your environment at a point in time. Okay, so I have a report here. Okay, so this universe documentation, this is one of the standard reports available in 360 Eyes. This report will give me information, including the object description, gives me all of my objects. I'm going to modify this to filter anywhere there's GDPR. So I've already flagged a few objects. There we go. So I've flagged a few objects with GDPR, and I want to see where those are, what objects those are. So I'm going to look for matches pattern, because I might have other content other than the flag. So this is what the flag was, GDPR. So I'm just going to give it a wildcard. I run this query, and I'm going to look at just the eFashion universe. Okay, and here I get a list. So here I've got this object, the address object. So you'll see that this is exactly what's put in the description field. So address of store, GDPR. So these are all objects that have been flagged. These are all GDPR related objects. So I want to now find out where this address object is used, which reports that might be used in. So I can actually look at another report. And we have impact analysis reports that will allow you to filter based on universe objects, based on SQL. So if you have this content, it's not in a universe object, it's in a SQL, and you know the column that that's stored in, that can also be filtered for these reports. So I will filter on, let me look at, we're looking at address. So this is my address object. It was in the eFashion universe in the store class, and I'm going to look at my latest snapshot here, and let's see. It looks like I've got one report that contains that object. So one report that I can set up. I can find out who's running this report, so I know who's got this information. Is it being delivered to email addresses? Is it being sent to a file share? I can see who's running it, and either set up alerts so that I'm notified whenever these objects are used. So that's how we recommend that the solutions can be used in the event that you have either GDPR, or even this would also help with other regulations as well.
right, so FISMA compliance is next. This is one that's super important for the United States federal agencies. So it's all about protecting national security and economic interests. And we've actually got a number of customers in the Justice Department who are leveraging these solutions to help them meet FISMA compliance today. So access control, there again, backup disaster recovery, data integrity, but what we're going to focus on here is account recertification. And that's really where you're making sure that users that have access to the system are actually using the system, because ultimately it could be a weak spot where people can find to get access to things they shouldn't have access to. And so why don't we take a walk through account recertification here. Pauline?
Okay, sorry, we're looking at access control. So with regards to FISMA, so we have a federal customer that has a need to make sure that their users that are in Active Directory and in business objects are the same as the users that are in Momentum. So Momentum's the system of record, whereas sometimes users will be removed from Momentum, but they don't always get removed from Active Directory right away. So they have they're using 360 Eyes and 360 Cast to on a daily basis check those two tables and make sure that there aren't any discrepancies, and if there are, discrepancy report is delivered. So a report is developed in 360 Eyes. It compares that CGI Momentum table with their Active Directory information that's in business objects, and 360 Cast distributes that report. So it just tells them, you know, these users are in AD, they're not in Momentum. Here's the delta, and those users, you know, need to be removed. So that's how we have a customer that's using that, and that's working very well for them. Another part of FISMA is data integrity. So, you know, being able to ensure that your data is accurate. Anytime you make a change to your environment, you have the potential of, you know, changing the results on your reports. You want to make sure that the reports that you're publishing have accurate data. Here's an example of a tool that we have. So this is 360 Bind that does automated regression testing. You can compare across versions, across environments. So anytime you make a change, in this example, it's applying a service pack, you want to make sure that there aren't any regressions. I'm going to show you what that looks like in the tool itself. And just an overview, so with regards to FISMA, we've already touched on security. 360 View can handle providing documentation of security and getting insight into security. Access control can be achieved with Eyes and Cast, and then the automated regression testing with 360 Bind. So let me show you what that looks like real quick here. Okay, so 360 Bind is part of the web application, and so I've run reports. Now I'm ready to compare the reports. This comparison can be launched. You can have this emailed to you. This can be automated, so you can schedule it anytime you make a change. Make sure you run this to compare your reports. In this example, I had 13 reports, 10 are matching, 3 aren't matching. The green dots indicate the reports that are matching, and then these red dots show the ones that aren't matching. If I click on the first one, I'll switch to the report view, and here's an example. So imagine the left-hand side 4.1, right-hand side 4.2, scrolling through. Anywhere there are differences in the report, it's highlighted. This takes the human error out of manually comparing reports, and gives you the ability to do it very quickly and automate the process. We can also compare graphs. So if you have graphs on your reports, the images get compared pixel by pixel, and you'll see on the right-hand side this graph has the red squares indicating where there are differences. So this tool is very helpful in ensuring that the the data that you're displaying on your reports is accurate. Okay. And let's go back here. Okay.
Right. So last but certainly not least in the list of regulations we're looking at is HIPAA. So a lot of our clients are in the medical field and are under HIPAA compliance, and so being able to meet those regulatory needs in this area is super important to us. Here again, being able to document your access controls, backing up and disaster recovery, traceability, encryption, and archiving. So we've kind of covered a number of these up to this point, but in particular, we want to dive into archiving. The term means a couple of different things to different people, and so the 360 Suites actually got several different ways to be able to help with archiving, since you have to keep things for over 6 years with HIPAA compliance.
Right. So here, these are the 4 methods that we've worked with customers to be able to archive their content. So the first method is archiving instances. So we had a customer that they had to maintain 7 years of their instances, but that was a lot of content to keep in their business objects environment. So we part of a solution we developed that's in 360 View allows them to archive their instances. So they are pulled out and they're stored outside of business objects, so in a network share somewhere. So they're still maintaining those instances, but they are outside of the business objects environment. Another archive option is with 360 Eyes. There's a job that you can actually flag unused content. So you could flag it with just in the description field, just like you would with the GDPR. Flag it to archive. Anything you can specify, I want to flag anything that hasn't been used in 1 year and 2 years, that will all get flagged, and then once it's flagged using 360 Plus, you can actually move that content to an archive folder, so that's still within your business objects platform, or to another business objects environment. So a way of archiving, it may not be what you traditionally think of archiving, but it has it's another solution that you can use. Another way of archiving, the third type is the backups. So with the backups, you have a reliable backup. You can actually then delete your content, any unused content that you want from your environment, but you can be confident that if you did need to restore it, you have that backup. So it's still there. It's not in your BI platform. It's stored in your backups. But with 360 Plus, you can always restore it if needed. And then the last method is the pseudo archiving. So this is with 360 Cast. So instead of bursting your reports, scheduling them, and storing them on your BO platform, either in the location of the report or sending them to users' inboxes, you could actually burst them and save them on a network location, so you've got them there for record keeping. So just another way of archiving. Okay, so Nathan, I'll send it back to you. I'm not going to show any of those. We're kind of running low on time, so I wanted to.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. We had a lot of content today. So ultimately, why 360 Suite? We sort of started with this question, and ultimately it comes down to trust. When it boils down to mitigating risk with managing business objects in a regulatory environment, we have over 2 million end users leveraging the 360 Suite, from everything from version control to BI on BI and everything in between. And essentially, the reason our customers continually choose us over the other options that you might have for different pieces and parts of this is that we're able to cut operational costs, be able to mitigate those risks around compliance, and ultimately give greater visibility into the landscape that today is just exceptionally difficult to piece together. So, one of the things that I thought of while we're going through this is Equifax, the whole scenario that they had around, they had a security leak where someone had access to things that they shouldn't have. If they would have had the 360 suite, Pauline, would they have been able to, flag that, check their security and be able to address the situation prior to getting in that situation?
Yeah, definitely. They could have identified where that gap was, and then also flagged it so they can see where that information is being stored. Yeah, that definitely would have helped tremendously.
Yeah, no doubt. So there are a couple more questions here. One of them is, does 360 Univ work with both UNV and UNX universes?
So it only works with UNX, so it's been delivered to work with UNX universes.
Excellent. And why don't you take us to the next slide as well? I'm going to go through here and see which other questions we can figure out. Right. So while I'm looking at that, we've got a couple of different events coming up in 2018. We're going to be both at BI and Analytics as well as BI and HANA there in February and early March. And we have a webcast coming up in December. Really, I believe it's going to focus in a bit on HIPAA compliance with the Vanderbilt Medical Center. But it's really around the 360 suite use case there. So that should be very interesting. The other question. All right, so one question that was brought up was, the way that the way the business objects is backed up today, with the giant beer files around each of the input, output, CMS, etc. There's an understanding that if they get too big, they could be a little bit unreliable as far as being able to restore those backup files. How does 360 address that challenge?
Yeah, so when the 360 backups are individual BIOR files per object, so each universe gets its own BIOR file, each report, each user folder, it gives you, so it doesn't have that limitation. I think it's like a 2 gig maximum or something, or starts having issues. There isn't that issue, and it also gives you the ability to singly restore one object, one user, one personal folder, with that solution.
Right. So it doesn't necessarily, with 4.2 SP3 or really 4.2, they've got the recycle bin. It covers a number of things in the landscape, but it's really only around when it's deleted. Something's deleted. If it corrupts or is otherwise somehow gotten out of the system or not working, you really don't have a way of addressing that. Whereas if you've got 360 Plus or Verse, being able to roll back to another version is as easy as a right click on any of those objects. Larry's asking if we have any white papers on traceability for HIPAA compliance. I don't know that we've got anything specific on HIPAA at the moment, but we'll follow up there, Larry. We'll check that out and see if we've got anything specific for you. Pauline, you see anything else that needs to be addressed?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, we're well over time now. Really appreciate everyone's attention and thoughts and questions around this. Why 360? Well, because you need to be able to leverage business objects in a regulatory environment, and you need that to work. And you talk to us. We'll help trial this out in your landscape if for some reason you haven't already got some of the 360 tools. You can reach us here, and we'll be happy to work with you. Thanks so much.